Introduction to DTG based regimens and Phase 1 Transition Plan. The session will be given by Professor Jaya Chakrabarti, Program Director, COE BHU. Dr. Jaya Chakrabarti is a professor and head Department of General Medicine, Institute of Medical Sciences, Banaras Hindu University, Varanasi. She is also the Program Director of Center of Excellence in HIV Care and Nodal Officer ART BHU Varanasi. She is a national trainer for HIV and has been involved in training and mentoring of ART centers. She has more than 75 publications to her credit, including NEJM, The Lancet, and Clinical Infectious Disease. She has been awarded the prestigious MJ Memorial Award in Infectious Disease, the state-level biomedical research competition, Vice Chancellor's Research Award, and she is a Fellow of Indian College of Physicians. Currently, she is also in charge of a deadly disease of COVID-19 in Sir Sundarlal Hospital, BHU Varanasi. She is giving her full contribution to fight against COVID-19. I am hand over the mic to Dr. Jaya ma'am to continue the session.
Okay, good morning everyone. Can you just hear me? Can you just type yes if you can hear me? Okay, that's good. Yes, thank you. At the onset, a very good morning to all of you, and I must congratulate all of you because all of you are part of this fight against COVID-19, and all of you are giving your services because ART Center is one of the few OPDs which are opening day in and day out. So thank you so much. So with this, I'll start my topic, Introduction to Dolutegravir based regimens, Phase 1 Transition Plan. So actually you've already had this topic before. Dr. Guha had given a very lucid presentation, but still if you have any clarification, we will do it today. So the content of my slides are introduction to dolutegravir into the National AIDS Control Program, and my job is to answer why we are giving dolutegravir, what is this drug, what is its pharmacology, and what are the benefits of giving this drug. When I tell you about the benefits, I'll tell you how it is to be used in first line, second line, as well as third line ART, and in special situations like HIV, TB, and women in reproductive age groups. It will also be given as a post-exposure prophylaxis, and I'll tell you how to do it. And at the end of my slide, I'll tell you about how the transition plan will go forth. So before I start my topic, you should know a little bit about the ARV drugs. We know that we have the NRTIs, NNRTIs, the PIs or protease inhibitors, integrase inhibitors. These are present in our program, especially the red highlighted drugs. They are all in our program. And we have certain which we do not have in the program, that is the fusion inhibitors and CCR5 entry inhibitors and post-attachment inhibitors, which is quite new, ibalizumab. Now, we have a very good drug, TLE. So the question arises, why are we going to a new group of drugs as a first line, that is integrase inhibitors. We have one integrase inhibitor called raltegravir, but now this dolutegravir is the second integrase inhibitor which is coming into the program. So just a moment, I'll just tell you how this drug works. So when the virus, HIV virus, comes inside the cell, it releases its RNA, and then there is reverse transcription and a DNA is formed, HIV DNA is formed. Now for this HIV DNA to integrate into the host cell DNA, once it integrates, it can never be removed. So this is a very important step. So when the HIV DNA integrates into the host DNA, it requires this enzyme called integrase. And this group of drugs, that is raltegravir, dolutegravir, bictegravir, elvitegravir, they inhibit this step in the life cycle of HIV. So they are called integrase inhibitors. So why dolutegravir based regimens? If you all know, I think all of you know that WHO has come with the guidelines that we should phase out TLE and go towards dolutegravir based regimens. Whenever you choose any drugs, there are certain things you see about the drugs. Whether it is efficacious. Number 2, does it have least side effects? Number 3, does it have minimum drug to drug interaction? 4, can it be given to all like HIV-1 as well as HIV-2? Can it be given with HIV-TB? Why? Because TB is one of our most common opportunistic infection. Can it be given to children as well as elderly? And lastly, can the drug have least very high genetic barrier and least mutations, resistance mutations? So these are the characteristic of any drug, and you choose drug in the program according to these characteristics. So let's see how does dolutegravir fare in this. So is it efficacious? It is very, very efficacious. Not only is it more efficacious than TLE, it causes very rapid viral suppression, much sooner than efavirenz. Does it have less toxicity and side effects? Again, a resounding yes. Those who have used efavirenz, you know they have a lot of neuropsychiatric complication, especially dizziness in those who are lean and thin. So if you just see the toxicities and compare it between efavirenz and dolutegravir, rashes in dolutegravir is just 2%, whereas it is in 13% of patients with efavirenz, whereas neuropsychiatric events with dolutegravir is just 5%, whereas it is 35% with efavirenz. But insomnia is a side effect which occurs more frequently with dolutegravir. Comparatively, if you just see it, dolutegravir has 13% insomnia, whereas efavirenz just has 7% insomnia. Now, I already told you it is very potent regimen. My next slide will show you that. And besides being very potent, it has not shown to cause emergent drug resistance mutations. So that is very, very interesting and very, very a good thing about this drug. Plus, it has minimal drug interaction, and it can be given in patients with infected with TB, tuberculosis. So HIV-TB co-infection, this drug can be given in this people. It is effective against HIV-2, whereas you know efavirenz is not, and it can be given across populations, that it can be given in children as well as women as well as elderly or adults. So let's go step by step and see it again. So in the single study, that was a study where dolutegravir was given in ART-naive patients, around 833, that's a large number of patients. And in this study, they saw that at 48 weeks, dolutegravir based regimen was better than efavirenz based regimen, and it was significant. And this significance persisted. That means it was at 96 weeks too. So at 96 weeks also, the people who were taking dolutegravir based regimens did much better than those who were in TLE or tenofovir, emtricitabine and efavirenz based regimen. Not only that, it was seen that those who were taking dolutegravir based regimen, they achieved viral suppression much sooner than those who were taking efavirenz. It's very clear in the next slide where you can see the graph. So if you see the graph over here, let me get the pointer for you. Okay, have I got it? Okay, this is the pointer. I'm sorry, I can't get the pointer. Yeah, I got it. So if you just see the yellow one, the yellow line is your efavirenz based regimen and the blue line is your dolutegravir based regimen. So if you just see, all, this is the y-axis is the proportion of people who have viral load less than 50, that is undetectable viral load, and this is the time duration. X-axis is the time duration. So if you just see, around 4 weeks, those with dolutegravir has almost to the tune of 80%. 80% of the people will have viral suppression less than 50 copies per ml. Whereas to achieve 80% with efavirenz, it is taking around more than 16 weeks. Okay. So that is what, and at every point of time there is a difference, and this difference of efficacy, and this difference is continuously significantly different between efavirenz as well as dolutegravir. That means dolutegravir is better, significantly better than efavirenz, and it also causes very early viral suppression, which we were just talking about before. Now, is it well tolerated? That is very, very important. You know, patients who cannot tolerate efavirenz because of dizziness and all, they will not take it. So it is very, very important that when you are giving a drug, it should be very, very well tolerated. And it is, if you see in the same study, single study, you just see only 2% of them, 2% of the patients discontinued dolutegravir based regimens, whereas 10% discontinued efavirenz based regimen at week 48, and a similar trend was seen at week 96 too. Now, there have been many studies with dolutegravir. There have been studies in ART naive patients, like single study Spring, 1-2, Flamingo, and it has also been seen in ART experienced persons. So in most of these studies, in those with naive, there was no integrase inhibitor or NRTI resistance through 48 or 96 weeks with dolutegravir. So resistance mutations was not seen. Why is this important? Because many studies in African countries have shown a high level of efavirenz based resistant mutations in people in ART naive also and treatment experience. So if we are getting a drug which has very high barrier to resistance and very little emergent mutations, that is what we want in our regimen. So this was seen both in ART naive patients as well as those who have experienced or treatment experienced PLHIV. So very few mutations and no mutations in those with ART naive patients. So what about how, if you compare the potency of a drug with genetic barrier to resistance? So if you just see, let me just take the pointer again. Yeah, I got my pointer. So this, the x-axis shows your potency. That means any drug which lies over here is very, very potent as compared to those who lying this side. So all efavirenz is also very, very potent. And then you have on the y-axis you have the barrier to resistance. Now, how does efavirenz compare with dolutegravir? Dolutegravir has one of the highest barrier to resistance. That means you do not get a lot of mutations, resistance mutations, and efavirenz has very low in barrier to resistance. Means it easily gets mutations, resistance mutations, and it will stop working. So, though efavirenz based regimens are very efficacious too, but integrase based regimens like dolutegravir and bictegravir and darunavir and protease inhibitor based regimens have very high barrier to resistance. That means if you give these drugs, there will be lesser mutations, and that is what you want for a drug, so that it works for a long time. Okay. Now the only hitch with dolutegravir was its use in pregnancy in pregnant women. So the SPAMO trial in Botswana, they published their results in 2018, where they showed that out of 426 women who took dolutegravir during at the time of conception, 4 had neural tube defects, and that made it at a rate, that means the neural tube defects occurred at a rate of 0.9%. Now 0.9% is very, very high. Why? Because women on efavirenz, they have a risk of neural tube defects of around 0.05%, if you see here in the third bullet point over here. And those with other ARV has a risk of 0.12%. And if you compare 0.9% with that, that's very, very high. Now, again, the reports, it was revised in 2019. Then when they enrolled more and more women in this trial, and this number decreased to 0.3%. Why? Because only 5 people out of 1,683 pregnant women had neural tube defects. Now, if you remember, when efavirenz was started, the same concern was raised that efavirenz causes neural tube defects. But as they use these drugs, and as your denominator, this 1683 and 426, this denominator will increase, I assume that this percentage will definitely decrease. So we don't have an update of 2020. As soon as we get that, maybe this will decrease. But as of now, the your chances of getting neural tube defects if you use these drugs in a pregnant woman is around 0.3%. Okay. However, it can be safely given to those pregnant women who come to you beyond first trimester. So it has no effect, because neural tube defects, whatever problem occurs, it occurs in the first 4 weeks of pregnancy. Okay, and nobody diagnoses pregnancy before that. Okay, so usually diagnose pregnancy around 6 weeks. Okay, so if they come beyond first trimester, you can go ahead and give dolutegravir. Now, when you start dolutegravir in a woman of childbearing potential, so you have to know the risk as well as the benefits. So let's go and count the benefits of the drug. So the benefits are, it causes greater maternal viral suppression. You saw that in studies. It causes fewer maternal deaths. So if your viral suppression is very good, you have fewer sexual transmissions and fewer mother to child transmission of HIV. These are the benefits of dolutegravir. But what are the risks? Now, dolutegravir as a drug causes weight gain. That is one of the side effects. We will go into that later, but because it's there in this slide, I would like to tell you about the weight gain also. And that weight gain, associated weight gain, may cause a little bit of morbidity and neonatal deaths among infants or pregnant women with dolutegravir associated weight gain. But if you just see the risk benefit model, it suggests that the benefits of dolutegravir for women of childbearing potential, newly initiating ART, it is likely to outweigh the risks associated with it. So dolutegravir, if you just compare, dolutegravir has more benefits than risks. Okay. So blanket exclusion that deny women equitable access to this optimal HIV treatment, WHO said, is not warranted or justified. So what can we do? If it is not justified, then what does WHO suggest us and what does NACO suggest us to do? So for every woman, we should effective contraception should be offered to adult women and adolescent girls of childbearing age or potential. Dolutegravir can be prescribed for adult women and adolescent girls of childbearing age or potential who wish to become pregnant or who are not otherwise using or accessing consistent and effective contraception, if they have been fully informed of the potential increase in risk of neural tube defects. Now the decision, you have to tell the woman and the family that these are the risks and these are the benefits, and it is for them to decide. In case a woman does not want to initiate TLD or tenofovir, lamivudine and dolutegravir based combination after adequate counseling, they should be initiated on TLE. Now if women is identified to be pregnant after the first trimester, as I told you, dolutegravir should be given and continued for the duration of pregnancy. So the gist of the thing is, it is your duty as counselors or doctors, counselors, everybody, that you tell the patients how does this drug work, how good it is, what are the risks and what are the benefits, and let the patient and the family decide. And you have to go by their decision. If they decide not to take TLD, you will not give them. If they decide, yes, I would like to take TLD, you will go ahead and give them TLD. It is for them to decide, and it is for you to counsel. Now, what are the adverse events and drug interaction of dolutegravir? So, we just discussed insomnia, headache, tiredness, dizziness. They are very, very non-specific, and you might have allergic reactions. Any drug can have that. Not that it's very, very common. I showed you when compared to efavirenz, it's very rash is very, very less. But what is concerning a lot of researchers is dolutegravir associated weight gain. So there is weight gain is seen in those who take dolutegravir, and WHO recommends that we should highlight the importance of healthy diet and regular exercise to help manage weight in these patients. Now, what about the drug-to-drug interaction? This is a table very clearly given. Now, usually, you know, I won't go into amodiaquine because it's not even used. It's an anti-malarial drug not used in India, but we use a lot of anti-epileptics. So it's very simple, common dictum in our ART center and our MOs. We tell them, ki if you have to use anti-epileptics, go for valproate. But if it is a young woman and she is might get pregnant, you can use levetiracetam. Okay? You should avoid phenytoin and phenobarbital because they are enzyme inducers and will decrease the dose of dolutegravir. And even carbamazepine, if you just have to use carbamazepine, it is better to replace if you to levetiracetam. But if you can't substitute it with anything else, then you have to use dolutegravir at a BD dose or twice daily dose. So you have to increase the dose of dolutegravir. Now, and it is always better to use valproate as an anti-epileptic or levetiracetam in patients with HIV, with seizures. Now, there is another anti-arrhythmic drug, dofetilide, not very commonly used, but if this is being used by the cardiologist, you have to tell them that you need to change the anti-arrhythmic agent. Now, the main problem is metformin. Why metformin? Because a lot of patients who have HIV also have diabetes, because the drugs also actually all the drugs make the metabolic profile worse, so they are more prone to diabetes than the general population, and metformin is the first drug to be used in patients with diabetes. Now, dolutegravir increases the levels of metformin, so you have to tell your endocrinologist or the doctors who are using metformin that you cannot use metformin more than 1 gram. Usually the highest dose of metformin which we use is 1 gram twice daily. But you need to tell the clinician who's prescribing metformin to these patients that you have to decrease the dose of metformin, otherwise there will be toxicity. Now, and you have to monitor glycemic control. The other problem is any drugs which use the polyvalent cations like magnesium, iron, calcium, aluminum based antacids, and zinc. So any multivitamins, calcium supplements, iron supplement. Now, if you give this, you cannot. They have interaction with dolutegravir. So you use them either 2 hours before giving dolutegravir or 6 hours after giving dolutegravir. So this needs to be kept in mind because we very freely give multivitamins, irons, calcium. So this needs to be looked into in the ART centers because they are very, very commonly prescribed drugs. Now, what about rifampicin? You know, rifampicin causes a havoc with all drugs. It has a lot of, it's an enzyme inducer. So anybody who has HIV TB co-infection and is getting rifampicin, you have to increase the dose of dolutegravir to twice daily instead of the normal once daily. Okay. So in this, if you see the drug-to-drug interaction table, if you are using carbamazepine and cannot substitute it, you use dolutegravir twice daily. And if you are using rifampicin, that is in patients with PLHIV with TB co-infection, you have to increase the dose of dolutegravir to twice daily. There is another situation which I will tell you later where the drug dose needs to be increased to twice daily. Now we come to how dolutegravir is proposed to be used under the national program. And the most important thing is any implementation will be done only and only after an office memorandum or you get a letter from NACO. It is not that I am presenting today, so tomorrow you just start the drug. No, you will get appropriate information from NACO and your UP SACS, and when SACS gives you the permission, then only you have to start this phasing out and start this regimens which I am talking about today. Okay. So, what is this transition to dolutegravir based regimen? So, we have come to a consensus that dolutegravir based regimen is the best regimen for everybody, and this is as per WHO norms which has been adopted by NACO. So, dolutegravir based regimens should be given for treatment of HIV positive adults, adolescents as well as children who weigh more than 20 kg and are more than 6 years. Okay, so weighing more than 20 kg and age more than 6 years. In the subsequent slides, it will be more clear about the pediatric dosing. Okay, now and dolutegravir based regimens will be the preferred regimen in the national program for all new PLHIV as well as those PLHIV who are already on ART. That means we will shift from TLE to TLD. Not now, when you get the proper information. Now, how selection of these dolutegravir based regimens would depend on the viral load suppression status of PLHIV. I'll elaborate on that in my subsequent slides. And it also depends on what drugs you have been using now, currently. Okay, and this has to be done in a phased manner. Why? Because otherwise there will be no drugs. So all this phasing will be done based on your drug stocks availability, and NACO will issue office orders, and you will also get office orders from UP SACS. So though we are timing you about this change, it does not mean that change occurs just from tomorrow. So what are our upcoming guidelines? So what is our preferred first line for adults, ART naive adults and adolescents? So it is tenofovir, lamivudine, dolutegravir for all PLHIV with age more than 10 years and weight more than 30 kgs. Okay. Now don't get confused with 25 and 6 years because of the simple thing that tenofovir you cannot give less than 30 kgs. Okay, tenofovir cannot be given. You can give abacavir, but you cannot give tenofovir. So above 10 years and weight 30 kgs, all PLHIV you give TLD, which comes as a fixed dose combination. You can give as a single tablet either at bedtime or any fixed time. It does not have any interaction with food, so you can give it at any time. Okay, so it can be given to HIV-1 patients with HIV-2 or patients with HIV-1 and 2. It can be given to those women who has taken single dose of nevirapine in the past. It can be given with PLHIV with TB. As I told you, the dose changes with anybody on rifampicin based regimens. It becomes more, and it also can be given with those in patients with hepatitis B and C. So it is actually harmonized. So you can give adults, adolescents, and children above the age of 10 years and weight more than 30 kgs. You can give simply TLD. Now for the woman of childbearing age or potential who wants to get pregnant, who does not want to use contraception, we have to tell them about the risk and the benefits, and it is their choice. If they want TLD, they will get TLD. If they want TLE, they will get TLE. Okay, and again and again, because you see all the slides are the same thing, it has to be, these guidelines will be implemented after the release of office letters or office memorandums from NACO and SACS. Now some patients cannot take tenofovir, or they have a body weight less than 30 kgs, so they may have renal failure. So these people, there is an alternate regimen for them. So those PLHI with body weight less than 30 kgs, you have to give abacavir 600 milligram plus lamivudine 1 tablet with dolutegravir 1 tablet daily. And those with high creatinine values, that means those with CKD, chronic kidney disease, again abacavir is a drug of choice. You cannot give tenofovir. Lamivudine you can give, but the dose depends upon the creatinine clearance. And dolutegravir can be given once daily. There is no renal modification for dolutegravir as well as abacavir. Okay, so there will be alternate regimens in the program for those who cannot take tenofovir. Okay. Now, there might be certain special situation, and the biggest special situation is ATT. Patients who are taking ATT on rifampicin containing ATT, you have the only change is dolutegravir you have to give twice daily, once in the morning and once in the evening. Okay, I told you many times. And what about female in the reproductive age group who opt out of TLD? I said very clearly, if they don't want TLD, you do not have to give. You cannot force them to give, take TLD. So you give them tenofovir, lamivudine and efavirenz. Now, if efavirenz cannot be given because the patient has HIV-2 or HIV-1, HIV-2, or they have prior nevirapine exposure, single dose nevirapine exposure or other NNRTI exposure, these patients have to be given TL plus lopinavir. Okay, now you know TL is given once OD and lopinavir is given 2 tablets twice daily. Okay, so this is it. So then special situation in TB, twice daily dose. In women who do not want to take TLD, give TLD. And in women who do not want to take TLD and you cannot give TLD because of HIV-2 or prior NNRTI exposure, give TL plus lopinavir. Okay, you were already giving this before also. Now, second line becomes a little bit complicated, but your SATSUP is going to take cognizance of this. So, those patients who have taken zidovudine based regimens in their first line, and they have failed on either NNRTIs or PI based first line regimen, you can straight away give TLD. Okay. Now, if tenofovir cannot be given because of the reasons I told you, CKD and weight is very low, or then you can give abacavir instead of tenofovir. Now, most of your regimens will be tenofovir or abacavir containing regimens with NNRTIs. So, if the patients have failed these regimens, tenofovir or abacavir containing with either NNRTIs or PIs, most of them will be TLE or TL lopinavir. So that those patients can be given straight away, can be given zidovudine, lamivudine and dolutegravir. And if in case you cannot give zidovudine because the hemoglobin is less than 9 gram %, then you have to give dolutegravir plus lopinavir. Okay, so dolutegravir plus lopinavir will be your second line regimen for them. Okay. Now, this situation will come later on, not now. Those you will initiate on TLD, okay, and they have failed on TLD, then your second line becomes PI based regimen. Okay. Now, your PI is always the preferred PI is atazanavir, and your NNRTI, if it was tenofovir before, it changes to zidovudine. Again, if you cannot give zidovudine because of hemoglobin less than 9, and if you cannot correct that hemoglobin, if you ask me, I would correct that hemoglobin. Okay, before I will only not give zidovudine if there is a class history of zidovudine induced severe zidovudine induced anemia. Otherwise, I would like to improve that hemoglobin and put them on ZL plus atazanavir, and I'll save the other drugs for the future. Okay, but just in case you cannot give zidovudine because the hemoglobin is less than 9, you can shift the patients to dolutegravir plus lopinavir based regimen. Here, because dolutegravir was already used as a first line, the dose of dolutegravir in the second line regimen becomes higher. You have to use twice daily. Okay. Now, those patients who will be started on ZLD, because tenofovir cannot be given to these people, Now again this situation will occur later on. So because they are on INSTI based first line, when they fail they'll get a PI based second line, and that is TL plus atazanavir. Now you have a lot of, all of you must be having a lot of patients who are multi NRTI exposed. That means they were giving stavudine, then they changed into tenofovir, and they were on an NRTI based regimen, and then they failed. So when you have multi NRTI exposed, the best drug to give is, because you have no NRTI left for them, so the best drug to give is dolutegravir plus lopinavir. Nowadays, now we were giving raltegravir and lopinavir, so that changes to dolutegravir plus lopinavir. And if there were multi NRTI exposed patients who were also taking PI based first line regimen, that is the third drug was PI, then you have to shift to dolutegravir plus darunavir. But you need to remember two things. Any PLHIV co-infected with TB gets a BD dose until the patient completes the ATT, that is around 15 days later, and then you can shift to OD dose. 15 days later, after you stop ATT, then you can switch the patient back to OD dose. Okay, till you are taking ATT, BD dose. 15 days later, you can change to OD dose. Now, what about those who were infected with hepatitis B? So, and they were on TL based regimen. You have to give tenofovir and lamivudine with whatever regimen you are making. Okay, so you have to give tenofovir plus lamivudine, because if you stop this or if you don't initiate this, the hepatitis, this drug you know very well that it works for hepatitis B. So you have to either continue or add TL based TL to this regimen, or tenofovir lamivudine should be added to all patients with co-infected with hepatitis B to make it very, very simple for you. Now this whole table looks a bit complicated, so you just take it out and print it out, and I think UPSACS and NACO will give you table calendar sort of things, but for the time being you can just take a printout of this and keep it in your tables if you just get confused. Now what about third line? Now whenever we give any third line, we include any third line regimen, we include at least new drugs with minimal risk of cross resistance to the previously used antiretroviral agents. And for us at this point, INSTI plus new boosted PI is the recommended third line ART. So third line ART will be started by all ART centers after receiving advice from SASIF of the respective select ART plus centers or COEs. And SACS in consultation and approval from NACO may authorize MO or SMO of other ART plus center based on their functioning and capacity. So this is how it happens. It is ART, third line ART is always given by the COE or ART plus centers. And currently our third line ART will be dolutegravir plus boosted darunavir. Okay. Now dolutegravir will be used in a OD dose if the drug was never used in first line or second line. But if any INSTI was used as a first line or a second line, then the dose will increase. As I told you before also, if you have already used INSTI before, the dose will become double. But if you have never used INSTI before, the dose will be same, that is OD. Now the complicated issue of CLHIV, I know all ART centers are very scared of prescribing children. So WHO recommends dolutegravir as the preferred first line drugs for all children in the age more than 6 years. Now we have a limitation, we always have a limitation with pediatric formulation, and so the pediatric ART technical resource group recommends the following regimens. And what are they? In children who weigh less than 20 kgs or are less than 6 years, the preferred regimen will be abacavir plus lamivudine plus lopinavir ritonavir. Okay, so this guideline is changing a bit. You used to give lopinavir ritonavir based regimens to those below 3 years, but now you will give it below 6 years. Okay, after you get a office memorandum Please remember that. You will be told to change this regimen, not at this point. Okay. Now, those with weight between 20 to 30 kg and age between 6 to 10 years, you can give dolutegravir, but you cannot give tenofovir. So, the regimen becomes abacavir, lamivudine and dolutegravir. Okay. And as I told you before, anybody, any children above the age of 10 years and above the weight of 30 kg, TLD, just like the ones you give in adults, is the treatment of choice. So the next slide almost shows you the same thing in a chart, basically a flow chart. So whenever a child comes, of course, after you confirm HIV and do this CD4 testing and all lab investigation, so you see whether the child is less than 6 years or less than 20 kgs. If any of these is present, you give abacavir, lamivudine as well as lopinavir. If the child is between 6 to 10 years and weighs between 20 to 30 kgs, it's abacavir, lamivudine plus dolutegravir. If the child is more than 10 years and with a weight of more than 30 kg, no problem, you just give TLD. And the child does not have any renal disease, of course, you cannot give tenofovir if there is a renal disease. But if the child is more than 10 years but the weight is less than 30 kgs, then again you go back. You can give dolutegravir, but you cannot give tenofovir. So abacavir 3TC plus dolutegravir. So if you are confused, just take out this chart, print it out and keep it in your desk, so that it helps you to formulate a regimen for children. So what about children with HIV TB co-infection? So it actually doesn't change. So if the weight is less than 20 kg and age is below 6 years, you give abacavir, lamivudine and lopinavir with super boosting of ritonavir. You are already doing that. So with super boosting of ritonavir. Now, and if the age is between 6 to 10 years and weight is between 20 to 30 kg, you have to give additional dolutegravir dose, because I told you anything with rifampicin, you have to increase the dose of dolutegravir to twice daily. Okay. And similarly, if the child has TB and is more than 10 years and above the age of 30 kg, again you can give TLD, but you increase the dolutegravir dose to twice daily. Okay. So the end point of this whole summary of this whole slide is CLHIV who is on rifampicin containing ATT regimen should receive additional dose of dolutegravir every day. So it becomes BD from OD. Very simple. What about post-exposure prophylaxis? We were giving PI-based regimens till now, but now that will also change. You will give TLD to a person once daily. Immediate one tab should be given within 2 hours of exposure, and you can give it at any time, because you can give TLD irrespective of the food. And this post-exposure prophylaxis regimen, as you know very well, has to be taken for 28 days or 4 weeks. So, and the monitoring of these patients are the same. You test at 6 weeks at baseline, 6 weeks, 3 months and 6 months for both HIV and hepatitis B and C, definitely at baseline. And for the patients, if you can do it, that will be very good. Now, post-exposure prophylaxis for children usually comes very less, but if you have children who needs post-exposure prophylaxis, you cannot, zerovudine is the recommended NRTIs or preferred backbone, and if the hemoglobin is less than 9, then you give abacavir, but abacavir is advised by NACO. Now, tenofovir can be given in children beyond 10 years and 30 kgs. And the third drug, either you give lopinavir if the child is less than 6 years, or dolutegravir if the child is more than 6 years and weight is more than 20 kgs. So third drug is either lopinavir or dolutegravir, and the NRTI backbone is either ZL or AL, or TL if the child is more than 10 years and more than 30 kgs. So now I come to the program, the phase 1 transition plan. So who are the first people where we will change to dolutegravir? In the first phase, dolutegravir will be initiated in all patients currently on raltegravir based regimens. Just to check whether you all are sleeping or not, can you just tell me which are the patients who are the patients who take raltegravir based regimens at present? Can you type? I'll just wait. Somebody is typing. Can you type? Who are the patients who take raltegravir based regimens? Just one by one, just type one and just enter. Then the second one you can type and enter. So third line patients, Pondicherry, very good. Who else? Who else besides third line? Do you know any patients who take raltegravir plus lopinavir? So what do you give for patients who have lamivudine rash? What do you give for patients who have chronic renal disease? Okay, so or multiple, very good, multiple NRTI failures. So in the first phase, we will change because there is a huge shortage of raltegravir. So we will change all those patients who are currently on raltegravir based regimens. Okay, patients who need to be switched to third line or alternate second line ARTs, dolutegravir will be the preferred INSTI instead of raltegravir. Okay, these are the first patients with whom we'll change. Now, how to change that? It has to be done based on the viral load. If patients PLHIV were on raltegravir plus lopinavir, as I told you, who patients with multi NRTI failures or patients with lamivudine rash, patients with CKDs. So raltegravir lopinavir was given. You have to see the viral load. If it is suppressed, if the viral load is suppressed less than let me get the pointer for you. So if the patient is virologically suppressed, that is viral load copies is less than 1000 or TND, then you can give lopinavir plus dolutegravir. Instead of raltegravir lopinavir, you give dolutegravir lopinavir. But what happens if the viral load is not suppressed? Okay, if the viral load is not suppressed, it is more than 1000 copies per ml, then you give boosted darunavir and dolutegravir, which is actually your current third line regimen. Okay, so if the patient is on raltegravir lopinavir and viral load is not suppressed, you go to darunavir, boosted darunavir and dolutegravir. And because the patient was already taken raltegravir INSTI based regimen in the beginning, so when you give dolutegravir, you have to give it at a higher dose. Can I get my pointer back? I can't get my pointer back. Okay, so let me go forward. What about those who are already on raltegravir and darunavir? That is most of our third line patients. Now third line patients, we just have to check their viral load again. If the viral load is suppressed, that is TND or less than 1000 copies, you will give them boosted darunavir as before, but you will give dolutegravir. Now since the viral load is suppressed, you can go for an OD dose of dolutegravir. But if the viral load is not suppressed, okay, it's more than 1000, then you will keep the patient on darunavir but give a higher dose of dolutegravir, that is twice daily. So to just simplify this whole slide, it is if the patient who are already on raltegravir based regimen, if their viral load is not suppressed, you will put them on dolutegravir at a higher dose, that is twice daily instead of once daily. Okay. Now what about those who have taken multiple NRTI exposed patients with virological failure and who need a second line initiation? Now if you have to initiate second line in these patients, Previously, we were giving lopinavir and raltegravir. Now we will give dolutegravir and lopinavir. Is that very, very simple? We are just because raltegravir is no longer in the program, so we change anything, anybody on raltegravir to dolutegravir. Okay. Now, those patients who have had a second line failure and who need the third line ART at this moment, then the drug of choice is darunavir, boosted darunavir and dolutegravir at an OD dose if their previous regimen was a PI based regimen. Okay. Now, because of this COVID-19, viral load testing is a problem with everybody. So, you can use the latest within 6 months, viral load done within the last 6 months. So, that can be used because now it is very, very difficult to get a viral load. And of course, your clinical judgment. And most of these decisions has to be taken by ART Plus Center or COE rather than the base ART centers. Okay, so you can ask your COEs as well as the ART Plus Center what to do. Now, how do you monitor and follow up PLHIV on second line ART? Nothing like that. It's just the same. You just monitor the body weight. You already do that. Treatment adherence, clinical 4S screening. Now, 4S screening is something we always did, but now the whole world is doing. Okay, because now because of COVID-19, you have to screen anybody who enters any OPD or any emergency with this most of this 4S screening. Okay, especially fever and coughs. So lab evaluation is just the same and nothing new in this slide. Now, there are certain important things you should know. The available stocks of raltegravir shall be utilized first. This is for actually COE and ART Plus centers. Okay. Dolutegravir has to be given BD dose for patients with HIV TB co-infection. Okay. And as I told you before, additional DTG dose will be stopped after completion of rifampicin based ATT, and the ATT patient will be continued on OD dose. Prudent, it is more prudent that you continue it for 15 days and then you transfer and then you change into OD dose from BD dose after you stop rifampicin. Okay. Now, dolutegravir is to be given in an OD dose for children, and in case of children on raltegravir, which are very, very few, I don't remember any in our. There'll be very, very few. And if the weight of the child is more than 20 kgs and age is more than 6 years, then raltegravir may be replaced by dolutegravir. Now, how to do viral load testing for this dolutegravir transition? For PLHIV already on ART, viral load test should be done before transition to a new regimen, and patients should have completed at least 6 months of ART on any ARV regimen, and this is actually the recommendation. Okay. And if the patients are virologically suppressed, all transitions to be done after a single suppressed viral load of less than 1000 copies. If the patient is virologically unsuppressed, you do what you are already doing. You step up adherence, you do adherence counseling for 3 months, and then you repeat, then you check whether the adherence is more than 95% and conduct a second viral load, and depending upon the results of the second viral load testing, you take a decision. Okay. Now, just because we see a lot of SASA patients and all, please check before you do a viral load whether the patient has any ongoing infection. Simple things like I came 2 days late and I did not take the last 2 doses. Little things like that. And if they are so scared at times to tell that to the ART centers, and you'll see the viral load is increased. But if you just go on asking the question, they'll say, okay, I could not take because I was 1 day delayed, or I had upper respiratory tract infection, or I was having fever at that time. So anybody has any viral illness, any diarrhea, any minor opportunistic infection, just wait for that to settle down before you do a viral load testing. Okay. So now viral load testing is a challenge because of this ongoing pandemic. Okay. So we will take a decision based on the latest available, as I told you, latest available viral load done anytime in the last 6 months. Okay. So any decisions if we have to take after you get an OM from NACO or the SACS, please take a decision based on the latest viral load done anytime in the last 6 months. Now there's a note for the counselors. You have to counsel the patient when you are changing a regimen, because they might be very, very comfortable with TLE. The second group of people who really you have to counsel is the women, adult women and adolescent of childbearing age, who wish to become pregnant, who is not using any contraception. They have to be informed very clearly about the risk as well as benefit of this drug, and let them choose the regimen. Okay. If any pregnant woman comes after first trimester, there is no choice. You just have to give TLD or dolutegravir based regimen. Okay. And you as a clinician, as the counselors, you should know yourself. You should be very clear in your mind what are the benefits, and they are likely to outweigh the risk associated with dolutegravir. Maybe when the 2020 figures come for the number of neural tube defects in pregnant women, the whole scenario will change. So at this time, you should be clear in your mind what are the risks and what are the benefits, and tell accordingly to the patients. Because many a times the patient just leaves on you and they say, Doctor Sahab, aap jo bolenge wahi hoga. Now, how do we build the capacity of the ART staff? All the SMOs and MOs should be telling about this to their staff. They should give because they are being trained, so they should pass on this training. I'm not very sure about this Zoom app over here, but of course you can use the telemedicine facility. Most of the medical colleges have this telemedicine facility, and they have said they'll have a one-day training of all concerned ART staff, like care coordinators, counselors, and pharmacists and data managers. I don't know when, looking at this pandemic. And of course, you will get material, online material, which will be uploaded by NACO for your referral. And IC materials will be given to you, ready reckoners, or if you don't get that ready reckoner, just take a printout of the slides. They're much more easier. Okay, so NACO is making patient information sheet for PLHIVs on new DTG regimens, and formats will also change accordingly, and those revised formats will be provided to you by your SACs. So I think I've come to the end of my presentations. If you have any queries, I'll try and solve it. If not, I'll put it in I'll ask other people to solve it and get back to you. Any questions? Zidovudine is being actually, if you just see, Zidovudine is no longer the first line choice for a long time, Dr. Anuradha. But you just can't take out Zidovudine, because you see the regimens have, the second line has Zidovudine as a part of the regimen, so it's not being phased out as of such. Like, there are people who will not be able to take tenofovir, then you have to give Zidovudine. Okay, so it's not being phased out that way, but it is no longer the choice for a long time now. Okay, doesn't look like that people have many questions, but I like to say a little bit, because I'm also seeing COVID-19, and in future you all have to open your ART centers, and the disease is just not going to disappear out of the blue, but there are certain things you have to instill in yourself. One is hand hygiene. Number two, in your OPD, there should be screening, and the screening person should be wearing protective, adequate PPEs. Third, you have to maintain a certain distance between the patients as well as patient and the healthcare workers. Third is that. Fourth is we don't bother about surface cleaning. You are more interested ki floor ko clean the floor with hypochlorite, but you are more likely to get this infection from the surface. So the cleaning staff of the ART center should clean all the commonly touched surfaces like your tables, your reception area, your door handles, doors, the chairs the patients sit in, especially the chair handles. Okay, so who will provide the PPE kit is a multi-million-dollar cost question. Okay, you can ask UP SACS if they have fund for that, and you can ask the hospitals you work in. They just can't let you be, okay, because they're taking care of other people also. So take care, be safe. Hopefully this whole mess of COVID-19 passes off and we see our we'll get back to our normal selves again. So thank you so much.